I was standing in my childhood bedroom, staring at myself in the mirror wearing my grandmother's wedding dress, when my brother Garrett burst through the door. His face was pale, hands shaking as he grabbed my shoulders. "Verona, check your phone. Right now, don't marry him." I thought he was joking. Garrett always had terrible timing with pranks. But when I saw the video he'd sent me, my bouquet hit the floor. 20 minutes later, I was walking down that aisle, but not for the reason anyone expected. That morning had started like a dream. The kind of perfect you see in movies but never think will actually happen to you. My name is Verona, and at 29 years old, I was about to marry Preston Whitfield, the man everyone said was perfect for me. I teach 3rd grade at Willowbrook Elementary, and Preston was this successful financial advisor who drove a Tesla and owned a house in the hills before 30. My mother, Diane, couldn't stop bragging to her book club about him. But let me back up just a little, to that moment when everything changed. Garrett, my younger brother by 3 years, had always been protective of me. He's a software developer, the kind of guy who notices patterns and details that others miss. Growing up, he was the one who caught my high school boyfriend, Kenny, cheating because he noticed the guy's Instagram location tags didn't match where he said he'd been. Garrett had this sixth sense about people, especially the ones who got close to me. Preston and I had been together for 3 years. We met at a charity fundraiser my school was hosting. He bid $5,000 on a dinner I'd donated. Homemade lasagna and tiramisu, my grandmother Eleanor's recipes. He showed up to collect his dinner with roses and that smile that made every teacher at my school jealous. Within 6 months, he'd charmed not just me, but my entire family. My father, Robert, who interrogated every boyfriend like he was conducting a congressional hearing, actually took Preston golfing. My grandfather, Eugene, who hadn't approved of any man I'd dated since I was 16, called Preston's son by our second Christmas together. The proposal had been perfect, too. Preston flew my whole family to Napa Valley, said he wanted everyone I loved to be there when he asked the most important question of his life. He got down on one knee in a vineyard at sunset with my parents, grandparents, Garrett, and my cousin Beatrix all watching. My Aunt Cordelia filmed the whole thing, and it went viral on TikTok. Teacher Gets Dream proposal had 4 million views. The comments were all about how lucky I was, how Preston was husband goals, how this was what real love looked like. The wedding planning took a year. Preston insisted on the best of everything. Rosewood Manor as the venue, a $10,000 dress budget, though I wore grandmother's instead. Flowers flown in from Ecuador, a 7-tier cake that cost more than some people's cars. Nothing but the best. For my Verona, he'd say, kissing my forehead while swiping his platinum card. My best friend Tamsin was my maid of honor. She'd been there through every relationship disaster before Preston, holding my hair back after too much wine and promising me I'd find someone worthy. "Girl, you manifested this man," she'd tell me. "Remember when we made that vision board senior year? Preston checks every single box, and he did." On paper, Preston was everything. Successful, handsome, generous, from a good family. His mother was a federal judge. His father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships. They had a vacation home in Aspen and another in Martha's Vineyard. At family dinners, they'd discuss art and literature, their tables set with actual silver that had been in the family for generations. But that morning, as I stood in my childhood bedroom, the same room where I'd dreamed about my wedding day since I was 7, Garrett's face told me something was terribly wrong. He wasn't the panicky type. Garrett once fixed a server crash at his company while we were at our cousin's wedding reception, typing code with one hand while doing the electric slide with the other. Nothing rattled him. "Garrett, you're scaring me," I said, looking at his phone screen. "Just watch," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The video was dark at first, but the audio was crystal clear. Preston's voice, the one that had whispered, "I love you" to me thousands of times, was saying things that made my stomach turn to ice. Each word was another crack in the perfect picture I'd built of our life together. The man I was about to vow to love forever was talking about me like I was a business investment, a convenient arrangement, a fool who didn't know she was being played. The bouquet hitting the floor sounded like thunder in the quiet room. White roses and peonies scattered across the hardwood, and I just stared at them, trying to process what I'd just heard. In 20 minutes, 200 guests would be waiting to watch me marry Preston Whitfield. But they were about to witness something entirely different. The morning started perfectly. My mother, Diane, was fussing with my veil while my father, Robert, kept checking his watch and wiping tears he insisted were allergies. The venue, Rosewood Manor, looked like something from a fairy tale with its garden pavilion draped in white roses and baby's breath. "Hold still, sweetheart," my mother said, securing another bobby pin into my updo. "You know, when I married your father, my mother did this exact same thing for me. It's tradition." She caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. 32 years later, and here we are. The bridal suite at Rosewood Manor was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens, where guests were already starting to arrive. I could see Preston's Harvard buddies congregating near the fountain, probably already 3 drinks in despite it being barely noon. His mother, Judge Patricia Whitfield, was directing the photographer with the same intensity she probably used in her courtroom. "Your grandfather Eugene just called," my dad said, poking his head into the room. "He's arguing with the parking attendant about his Cadillac. Says nobody under 40 knows how to properly handle a classic car." We all laughed. Grandpa Eugene was 83 and still treated his 1975 Cadillac like it was his 4th child. My cousin Beatrix was running around with her makeup kit, touching up the bridesmaids. "Tamsin, stop crying or your mascara will run," she scolded. "Save the tears for the actual ceremony." "I can't help it," Tamsin said, fanning her face. "Our little Verona is getting married. Remember freshman year when you said you'd probably die alone with 12 cats? That was after Brandon dumped me via text message," I laughed. "Preston proposed in front of my entire family with a 3-carat diamond. Slight upgrade. My Aunt Cordelia had her phone out, live streaming everything for our relatives in Michigan who couldn't make the trip. "Say hi to Cousin Martha," she said, turning the camera toward me. "Martha says you look gorgeous and Preston better treat you right or she'll drive down there herself." The energy in the room was electric. My grandmother Eleanor sat in the corner, her oxygen tank beside her, watching everything with sharp eyes. At 91, she'd insisted on being here despite her doctor's concerns. "I'm not missing my granddaughter's wedding," she declared. "I'll rest when I'm dead." "You look beautiful in my dress, darling," she said when I knelt beside her chair. "Your grandfather would be so proud. He always said you were the smartest one in the family. Don't let anyone tell you different." Preston and I had dated for 3 years, and everyone agreed we were perfect together. He'd integrated seamlessly into our loud, chaotic family. Sunday dinners at my parents' house became a regular thing. Preston would bring expensive wine and help my mother in the kitchen, discussing her book club selections while chopping vegetables. He'd watch football with my dad and Garrett, shouting at the TV like he'd been part of our family forever. "Preston's different," my mother had told me after our 6-month anniversary. "The way he looks at you, honey. That's how your father still looks at me." Even Garrett had warmed up to him eventually, though it took longer. They'd bonded over some cryptocurrency investment Preston had recommended that actually paid off. "Your boyfriend just made me $5,000, Garrett had said, shocked. "Maybe he's not so bad after all." The proposal story had become legendary in our social circle. Preston had coordinated with my entire family, flying everyone to Napa Valley under the pretense of his parents' anniversary party. When he got down on one knee in that vineyard, with the sunset painting everything gold and my family surrounding us, I'd never felt more loved or certain about anything in my life. "Verona, we need to get your shoes on," Beatrix said, bringing over the delicate heels I'd bought specifically to match grandmother's vintage dress. "The photographer wants some shots before the ceremony." I glanced at the clock, 11:45 a.m. The ceremony was set for 12:30. Preston was probably in the groom's suite on the other side of the venue with his groomsmen, likely taking shots of ridiculously expensive whiskey and congratulating himself on locking it down, as he liked to say. But Garrett stood apart from all the excitement, stationed by the window like a security guard, his phone clutched in his hand. He'd been quiet all morning, which wasn't like him. Usually he'd be cracking jokes about my transformation from goblin to princess, or reminding everyone about the time I tried to cut my own bangs at 13. "Is everything okay with Garrett?" I asked my mother. She glanced over at him and waved dismissively. "Oh, you know your brother. He's probably worried about his speech. He's been practicing it for weeks. Your father caught him talking to himself in the garage yesterday." I walked over to him, careful not to trip in my dress. "Hey, you good? You look like you're about to throw up." He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just want everything to be perfect for you, Ronnie." Looking back now, I realize he was already carrying the weight of what he knew was coming, trying to figure out how to destroy my perfect day while saving me from something worse. 15 minutes before the ceremony, Garrett pulled me aside. "Ronnie," he said, using my childhood nickname. "I need to show you something." His voice cracked like it hadn't since he was 14. "Now?" "Garrett, the music's about to start. 200 people are sitting out there. This can't wait." He was sweating despite the air conditioning blasting through the bridal suite. His hands trembled as he fumbled with his phone, nearly dropping it twice. "Please, just trust me." I looked around the room. My mother was helping grandmother Eleanor with her shawl. Tamsin was doing last-minute lipstick touches, and Beatrix was arranging my train for the walk down the aisle. Everyone was in their own world of wedding preparation bliss. "Fine," I said, following him to the adjacent powder room. "You have 2 minutes." Garrett closed the door behind us and locked it. "Last night at Preston's bachelor party, something happened." I rolled my eyes. "If this is about strippers or someone getting too drunk, I don't care. Boys will be boys, right?" "It's not that." He thrust his phone at me with such force I almost dropped it. "My friend Dexter sent this. He was the designated driver for Preston's cousins. They went to the Ritz-Carlton downtown after the main party ended. Garrett, I know about the after party. Preston texted me goodnight from there. Just watch the video." The screen showed a hotel suite, dimly lit but luxurious. I recognized the voice immediately. Jordan, Preston's best man since college, loud and obnoxious as always. The camera was shaky, like someone was recording secretly from pocket level. Then Preston's voice cut through clearly. "Marriage is just the next logical step," Preston said, and I could hear ice clinking in glasses. "Verona is perfect on paper. She teaches kids, wants the house, the babies, the whole white picket fence package. Plus, her family's loaded. That inheritance from her grandmother? The woman's sitting on $3 million in assets. We're set for life." My chest tightened. Someone else laughed. Sounded like Preston's cousin Marcus. "But dude, you love her, right?" An unfamiliar voice asked. Preston's laugh was cold. Nothing like the warm chuckle I'd fallen in love with. "Love? Come on, man. Love is for Disney movies. Verona's sweet, devoted, trusting. She'll be a good mother, won't ask too many questions, and her family connections will open doors for my firm. It's a solid investment." I gripped the sink counter to steady myself. Jordan's voice again. "But what about Scarlett?" My heart stopped. Scarlett? Who was Scarlett? "Scarlett knows the deal," Preston continued. "We've been together since college. She gets it. She's not wife material, too wild, too independent. But she's incredible in ways Verona could never be. Scarlett understands that I need both, the respectable wife and the woman who actually excites me." Someone whistled low. "That's cold, bro." "It's practical," Preston corrected. "Once things settle after the honeymoon, everything goes back to normal. Scarlett's already apartment hunting closer to our new house. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, occasional weekends when Verona visits her parents. It's all planned out." "Does Scarlett know about the wedding?" "Of course she knows. She helped me pick out Verona's ring." More laughter. "Said to make sure it was big enough to keep her distracted." The video continued. Preston detailed how he'd maintained both relationships, how he'd hidden money in offshore accounts that Verona and her small-town teacher, Brain, would never find, how he'd convinced me to sign a prenup that looked generous but actually protected all his hidden assets. "The prenup was brilliant," Jordan added, "making her think it was to protect her grandmother's inheritance instead of your money." "Genius." "Her father ate it up," Preston said. "Robert's a good man, but naive. The whole family is. They think everyone's as honest as they are. Even that brother of hers, the computer geek, too busy staring at screens to see what's right in front of him." The video ended. I stood there, gripping Garrett's phone, my engagement ring catching the light, suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "There's more," Garrett said quietly. "I did some digging after Dexter sent this. Scarlett Pemberton. She's on Preston's company insurance as a consultant. Has been for 2 years. She flies with him on business. Trips, her Instagram is full of photos from places Preston told you he went alone. My reflection in the mirror showed a stranger, white dress, perfect makeup, about to marry a man who'd been performing an elaborate con for 3 years. Every "I love you," every tender moment, every promise had been a lie. "How long have you known?" I asked. 45 minutes. Dexter sent it as soon as he got home and sobered up enough to realize what he'd recorded. "I've been standing out there trying to figure out how to tell you." A knock rattled the door. "Verona! We need you now. The processional music is starting." Tamsin's voice was bright with excitement. I looked at my brother, my protector since childhood, who'd just shattered my world to save me from something worse. How many people know? From the bachelor party? At least 12. All his groomsmen, some cousins. They were all laughing, Ronnie, laughing about how clueless you are. The humiliation burned through me like acid. In 10 minutes, I was supposed to walk down an aisle toward a man who'd made me the punchline of a 3-year joke, while his groomsmen stood there knowing everything, probably taking bets on how long before I found out. My hands trembled as I replayed the video. Garrett held me as my knees buckled, keeping me upright when everything inside me wanted to collapse. The beautiful dress that had belonged to my grandmother suddenly felt like a costume in someone else's play. "I'm so sorry, Ronnie. I didn't know how to tell you. Dexter just sent this an hour ago." Tamsin knocked again, harder this time. "Verona! It's time. Everyone's waiting." I stared at myself in the powder room mirror. My makeup was still perfect, not a hair out of place. The woman looking back at me had 2 choices: run out the back door and leave 200 guests wondering what happened, or face this head on. The humiliation would come either way, but at least I could control how it unfolded. "I'm not letting him humiliate me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I'm not running either." "What are you going to do?" A plan formed in my mind, cold and clear as winter ice. "The reception hall has that big projector screen, right? The one they set up for our slideshow?" Garrett's eyes widened as he caught on. "Verona, that's exactly what he deserves." I grabbed my phone from the counter and forwarded the video to my father with a message. "Dad, trust me. When I give you the signal, play this on the projector, the one set up for the slideshow." "Are you sure?" Garrett asked. "Once you do this, there's no taking it back." He made sure there was no going back the moment he started this charade. I fixed my lipstick with steady hands, surprising myself with my composure. 3 years, Garrett. 3 years of my life spent loving someone who was laughing at me behind closed doors. Every holiday, every family dinner, every time he held my hand in public, it was all a performance. I straightened my veil and unlocked the door. Tamsin nearly fell into the room. "Finally!" "What were you doing in here?" "Just needed a moment," I said, forcing a smile. "Pre-wedding jitters." "Well, jitter on the way to the altar. Preston's already up there looking like he's about to pass out from happiness." Happiness? Right. Or maybe he was calculating the hours until he could see Scarlett again. My father met us in the hallway, his phone in hand, face dark with barely controlled rage after seeing the video. A vein throbbed in his temple that I'd only seen once before, when he'd caught my high school boyfriend Kenny trying to pressure me at a party. "Princess, we can call this off right now. Say the word and I'll go out there and send everyone home." "No, Dad. Follow my lead and make sure the projector is working." "What are you planning?" "Justice," I said simply. "Grandmother Eleanor always said the truth has a way of coming out. I'm just going to help it along." My mother appeared, beaming with joy that was about to be destroyed. "There you are. Oh, sweetheart, you look radiant. Preston's been asking if you're okay. He's so nervous." I wondered what he was actually nervous about. Probably whether he'd transferred enough money to his hidden accounts or if Scarlett had found her new apartment yet. "Mom, whatever happens next, remember that I'm okay," I said, hugging her tightly. She pulled back, confused. "What do you mean, whatever happens?" "Just trust me." The wedding coordinator, a peppy woman named Jennifer, ushered us toward the garden entrance. "Places, everyone. Bridesmaids, you're first. Verona, you and your father will wait for your cue." Through the glass doors, I could see the scene I'd dreamed about for months. 200 guests in their finest clothes, seated in white chairs adorned with ribbon and flowers. The garden pavilion looked like something from a magazine, thousands of dollars in flowers creating a floral wonderland. Preston stood at the altar in his custom Italian suit, his groomsmen lined up beside him, all sharing the secret of my humiliation. "Ronnie," Garrett whispered, squeezing my hand one last time. "You don't have to do this. We can just leave." "Yes, I do," I said. "Not for revenge, for every woman he might do this to after me. For Scarlett, who probably doesn't know she's also being played. For me, because I deserve to walk out of here with my head held high." The music changed to the wedding march. Jennifer opened the doors and the guests stood, turning to look at me. I saw Preston's mother dab her eyes with her handkerchief. My grandmother Eleanor gave me a small wave from her front row seat, oxygen tank at her side. Preston's Harvard buddies smiled knowingly. Did they all know? How many people in this garden were in on the joke? My father offered me his arm. "Ready, princess?" "Ready." We started walking down the aisle, each step measured and deliberate. I kept my eyes on Preston, watching his face, searching for any sign of the real man behind the mask. He smiled at me, that perfect smile that had fooled everyone, tears actually forming in his eyes. The performance of a lifetime. But I was about to give a performance of my own. The bride who refused to be anyone's fool. The woman who would not go quietly into humiliation. 20 steps to the altar. 20 steps to the truth. The music swelled as I walked down the aisle. Preston stood there, tears in his eyes. Oscar-worthy performance. Our families beamed, his mother dabbing her eyes, my grandmother Eleanor in the front row with her oxygen tank, so happy to see me married before she passed. I reached Preston, took his hands. They were warm and steady, the hands that had held mine through 3 years of carefully orchestrated lies. He mouthed, "You look beautiful," and squeezed my fingers gently. For a split second, I almost faltered. This was the man who'd brought me soup when I had the flu, who'd driven 4 hours to surprise me on my birthday, who'd held me when my childhood dog died. The officiant, Reverend Mills from my parents' church, began with his warm smile. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness—" "Wait," I interrupted, my voice carrying across the silent garden. "Before we begin, I have something to share." Preston's smile flickered but held. "Honey, what are you doing?" I turned to face our guests, still holding Preston's hands so he couldn't retreat. Preston and I wanted to share something special. A video from last night showing the real Preston that not everyone gets to see. His grip tightened painfully on my fingers. "Verona, this isn't funny." "You're right. It's not funny at all." I nodded to my father. The projector screen lowered behind us with a soft mechanical whir. Preston's face went from confused to pale as recognition dawned. "Verona, please, whatever you think." The video began playing, Preston's voice filling the garden with crystal clarity thanks to the expensive sound system he'd insisted on. "Marriage is just the next logical step. Verona's perfect on paper." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Preston's mother, Judge Patricia Whitfield, slowly rose from her seat, her face transforming from confusion to horror. "Turn it off," Preston hissed, grabbing for my arm. "Let them hear who you really are," I said, stepping back from him. The video continued. Every damning word echoed across the garden. Her family's loaded. That inheritance from her grandmother? The woman sitting on $3 million in assets. My grandmother Eleanor's sharp intake of breath was audible even from where I stood. She gripped her cane with white knuckles. When Preston's voice said, "Scarlett knows the deal." "We've been together since college." The garden erupted into chaos. "Scarlett? Scarlett Pemberton?" Preston's mother shrieked. "Richard's daughter?" A young woman in the 5th row, pretty, dark-haired, wearing a red dress that stood out among the pastels, jumped up and ran toward the parking lot, her heels clicking frantically on the stone path. So Scarlett had actually come to watch Preston marry me. The audacity was breathtaking. She's not wife material. Too wild, too independent. But she's incredible in ways Verona could never be. My mother let out a sound I'd never heard from her before, something between a sob and a snarl. My father had to physically hold her back from charging at Preston. The video reached the part about the prenup. Making her think it was to protect her grandmother's inheritance instead of your money? Genius. Preston's father, Harold Whitfield, stood up slowly. His voice boomed across the garden. You used my law firm to draft fraudulent documents? Dad, I can explain. Explain? Harold's face was purple with rage. Explain how you've destroyed our family's reputation? How you've humiliated this young woman and her family? How you've been carrying on with your second cousin? The crowd gasped again. I hadn't known that part. Second cousin? I asked, genuinely shocked. Preston's Aunt Martha called out, Scarlett is my sister's daughter, Richard and Monica's girl. What is wrong with you, Preston? Preston turned to me, desperation replacing his earlier confidence. Verona, please let me explain. It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like you've been playing me for 3 years, I said, my voice carrying clearly. It sounds like you and Scarlett have been laughing at the stupid teacher who fell for your act. His groomsmen were slowly backing away from the altar. Jordan, his best man, tried to slip away unnoticed, but my cousin Beatrix blocked his path. Oh no, you stay right here. You were laughing in that video too. My grandmother Eleanor stood up, her oxygen tank forgotten, pointing her cane at Preston like a weapon. You're a disgrace, young man. My granddaughter is worth 1,000 of you. Grandma, please sit down, I called out, worried about her health. I will not sit down. This pathetic excuse for a man stood in my living room and promised to love and cherish you. He ate at my table. He called me Grandma. She turned to the crowd. Every single person here should know that Preston Whitfield is a liar, a cheat, and a coward. Preston's groomsman Kyle tried to defend him, stepping forward with his hands raised. Look, all guys talk like that at bachelor parties. My usually quiet father stepped forward, his voice deadly calm. Not in my family, they don't. Not about my daughter. Everyone out now, except you. He pointed at Preston. Your family can deal with you. The guests began filing out in stunned silence, some recording on their phones, others whispering among themselves. Preston's mother approached me, tears streaming down her face. Verona, I am so deeply sorry. I had no idea. If I had known... She turned to her son. You've destroyed everything. Everything. 6 months. Later, I was having coffee with Garrett and his new girlfriend, Tamsin. Yes, my former maid of honor. Turns out something good came from that disaster of a day. They'd bonded over protecting me from the aftermath and discovered they were perfect for each other. You know what Grandmother Eleanor says? I laughed, stirring honey into my latte. That it was the best wedding she ever attended. Better than cable TV? She's been dining out on that story at her seniors center for months. She's become quite the celebrity, Tamsin added. My mom says Eleanor's been invited to speak at 3 different women's clubs about standing up for yourself at any age. The immediate aftermath of the wedding had been intense. The video went viral within hours. Someone's aunt had been live streaming the ceremony for relatives in Germany, and the whole revelation was captured in high definition. Bride exposes cheating groom at altar had 15 million views in the first week. News outlets called it the wedding takedown of the century. Preston had moved to Seattle within a month. His father's law firm conducted an internal investigation and found more than just the fraudulent prenup. Preston had been using his position to hide assets for several clients' divorces, taking a cut for himself. He lost his license to practice financial advisory, and last I heard, he was working at a car rental agency. The Scarlett situation exploded his family completely. Turns out she wasn't the only secret he'd been keeping. 3 other women came forward after the video went viral, each thinking they were his only side relationship. The irony, Garrett said, shaking his head, is that Preston thought he was so smart, playing everyone. But he was the one who got played by his own ego. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'd been getting a lot of these lately. Hi, I'm Maxwell Chen, a documentary filmmaker. I'm creating a piece on modern relationships and the importance of truth in the digital age. Your story has inspired thousands of women to look closer at their relationships. Would you consider sharing your full story? I looked at Garrett and Tamsin. What do you think? Should I do it? Do it, Tamsin said immediately. Do you know how many women have reached out to me saying your video gave them the courage to leave toxic relationships? You've become like a patron saint of calling out cheaters. It was true. My Instagram had blown up with messages from women sharing their own stories, thanking me for showing them that public humiliation isn't something to fear when you're the one telling the truth. I'd started a blog called Walking Away in White about recognizing red flags and rebuilding after betrayal. It had 50,000 subscribers. You know what I learned? I said, pulling up the documentary filmmaker's message to respond. Love shouldn't make you blind. It should make you see clearer. Real love doesn't require you to ignore your instincts or make excuses for someone's behavior. Preston love-bombed me with grand gestures and expensive gifts, but he never really saw me. He saw a role he needed filled. My father had been the surprising hero in all of this. After the wedding disaster, he'd hired a forensic accountant to review everything Preston had touched financially. We discovered Preston had already tried to access information about grandmother's accounts, though thankfully he hadn't succeeded. Dad also found that Preston had taken out credit cards in my name. Fraud charges were filed, and that was what ultimately cost Preston his professional licenses. The best part? I continued, typing my response to Maxwell. Grandmother Eleanor had her dress reframed. It now hangs in the local history museum with a plaque that reads, "Worn once for 57 years of love, worn twice for 20 minutes of truth." She donated it for their exhibit on women's strength through the generations. My phone rang. It was my new principal at Willowbrook Elementary. After the video went viral, parents had actually requested their children be placed in my class, saying any woman with that much courage and integrity was exactly who they wanted teaching their kids. My third graders had made me a crown that said Queen of Truth, which I kept on my desk. Hello? Yes, I'd be happy to speak at the district conference about maintaining integrity in difficult situations. Thank you. Garrett raised his coffee cup. To Verona, who turned the worst day into the best lesson. To all of us, I corrected, for having the courage to see the truth and act on it. Sometimes the best chapters really do start with the ones that were supposed to end. Preston thought he was playing me, but in the end, I won a game I didn't even know we were playing. And that wedding? It cost him everything and gave me something priceless, the knowledge that I could face my worst nightmare and walk away stronger. The truth really does set you free, even if it's in front of 200 wedding guests and a live stream that goes viral worldwide. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that they deserve better. Have you ever discovered a devastating truth at the worst possible moment? Share your story in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who chose truth over comfortable lies. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about real people facing life's most challenging moments with courage and grace. Remember, you're stronger than you think. And you deserve someone who chooses you every single day, not just when it's convenient. Until next time, keep choosing truth, even when it's hard.